Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
And you're very welcome along to Friday Night Racing. It's Jerry Gilroy and Johnny Ward with you every Friday afternoon from 3 o'clock. We also broadcast at 8 o'clock on Off the Ball on Newstalk every Friday night as well. So, as ever, if you want to get involved in the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. You can use the hashtag Every Racing Moment, and Friday Night Racing is, of course, brought to you in association with Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Johnny, before we get to our guest this week, we should talk briefly about the big story of the week. That was Oisin Murphy. He's come out strongly to try and defend himself, but it's a difficult scenario he finds himself in, and he could be facing a 6-month ban potentially once the A sample tested positive for metabolites of cocaine.
Yeah, you know, he has come out in no uncertain terms, and stated that he had a second test, which was a hair test sample, which exonerated him. He's saying anyway. So he's waiting on French Gallop now, and he's kind of, I guess, just allowing the process to go ahead. You know, considering the time that he's had and how much of an impression he's even made on social media with his kind of analysis in the car after racing. It's something that a lot of people have really warned to. This would be pretty catastrophic, it has to be said. You know, we've had some high profile jockeys down the years, not that distant past rather, that have had issues with cocaine, and it's not uncommon for jockeys to be done for it, unfortunately, but at that level, you'd imagine that it'd be a crazy risk to take, and I think everyone sincerely hopes that he does, get exonerated, because it would be catastrophic at this stage of his career, and it would be, obviously something that would be a stain on his character ever more, really. So hopefully it turns out okay for him. Just how good a jockey is he for people who are kind of unfamiliar with how famous and how brilliant he's become over the last couple of years? Yeah, he's actually a nephew of Jim Cullity, who would have been obviously associated with Best Mate, and he went over to England pretty early in his life, but he's developed into basically a top class jockey. There's probably maybe a thought out there among some racegoers that Ryan Moore isn't quite the jockey he was in recent seasons. Be that true or not, Oisin Murphy has gone right to the top, really. He's top class, obviously. Very good role with Qatar Racing, and he rode Kamiko to win the Guineas, so it's been a very good time for him. I guess it was a little bit of disbelief, really, when I saw this come up yesterday, because it was like, well, you see these kind of journeyman jockeys or young jockeys who they make a mistake in a night out, and we've had a fair few cases in Ireland in recent years, and I think the Turf Club has tried to really clamp down on it. The IHRB, it's increased I think the ban and all that, but Oisin's absolutely top class, really cool rider, really cool character, and I just hope that it's not true. OK, we'll keep a close eye on that story as it evolves over the next while. Now, I'm delighted to say our guest this week is Lorna Fowler, and she joins us live from Gowran Park. Lorna, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Happy to be at Gowran.
Yeah, so you've got a runner this afternoon around about 5:30, is that right?
Yeah, I have Lady Heath in the bumper, so it's a listed bumper. It's a really hot race, which figures because the prize money is great, and obviously it's listed, so people are looking for their black type, which for fillies is the be-all and end-all when it comes to breeding animals. So you get to the sales and it sort of adds to the value. So it's a big race, yeah, important. So
this is actually not a bad way to explain a little bit about your backstory. This is one of your horses. How long have you had Lady Heath?
So Lady Heath was bred by Tom Bruton, and Tom Bruton, he still owns 3/4 of her. And Tom has had horses with So my husband, Harry, grew up at Rainston. His father trained, his mother trained actually after his father. His grandfather also trained. And Tom's had horses with Harry's grandfather, his father, his mother, and now me. So Tom is in for the long haul, that's for sure. So Lady Heath has been with us. She actually went to go to the sales as a 3-year-old, but nobody wanted her. And so she came home, and she's just really tough. She loves her racing. And you're halfway there if you've got a filly that wants to do it.
Right, that's mad that somebody's had 3 generations of horses with you guys.
Completely mad. Well, it's brilliant as well. And fair play to Tom as well for I suppose going the whole journey through with the Fowlers. But hopefully now he has a nice horse. He does breed. He has a lot of he has quite a few mares, not a lot of mares, but he has a few. He also has Wild Rumour in training with me, and he has young stock coming through. So yeah, he's always living the dream, and he's delighted. He'll be at the races today, and he's really, really, really happy to be coming back on the racecourse.
Are you living the dream as well? Because obviously, there's a lot going on. You guys are involved in pretty much all aspects of breeding and training as well. So you do a little bit of everything. Is that right?
Well, we do. Training is, I suppose, my main thing. Is what I focus on. But there is obviously a bigger picture. We're very lucky. We have a lovely farm. It's a big farm. There's lots of land, and so we're in a position where we can have a lot of stock on the land. So we have quite a lot of mares in partnership with other people and 4 other people that we board, and then we have their offspring. So we've got foals through to 3-year-olds basically. The land is particularly good. There's this limestone belt that runs through a part of Ireland, through County Meath and Kildare and other places too, but some very good stud farms are on it, and we're on it. But that land is very important for giving the horse, that really good soil, that really good grass, and that's what builds the good bone in the horse. So, it's all about having the right animal to go to war with. So, that's what it does for them.
And because there's so much happening, being involved in the training part as your main gig, as you've talked about there, like how much of the rest of the stuff actually feeds into what you're doing as a trainer, and how interested, because it just seems like it's endlessly fascinating anyway.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're a little bit different, I suppose, insofar as we have the large stud farm and it's based in one place. Now we have the barn of racehorses now, and we do keep that separate because it's very important that racehorses stay healthy. Their lungs are very precious and they're very precious, and so we tend to keep the other stock away from them in terms of a different yard, and they're obviously out in the fields. But we sort of came about it, I suppose. John, Harry's father was a very successful trainer. He had horses like Maid of Money. She won an Irish Grand National, Opera Hat, who was, she was exceptional for the Coopers. And we have her granddaughter in training now, Silk Hat, which is he has a lot of generations going on here through Rainston. But she's a 4-year-old now, and she's going well. So I suppose we have the generations of horses, and because we have the mares, you have the offspring. Now, of course, we sell horses, other people have to sell horses, you have to keep the show on the road. And I've probably been predominantly training fillies because you always want to keep a good filly out of a family to keep the breeding going. So you have a good brood mare. She has, a couple of boys, you sell them, that's sort of where you get your money. And then you keep the mares, the fillies rather, when they're younger, and then you can race them, and then hopefully they're good, and then they can then go to the breeding sheds themselves and keep their line going. Because if you have a good family, if you have a good brood mare, and she produces one good foal, the chances are, generally speaking, that she will be a good producer and produce you a lot of good foals, and then you're in clover.
When did you know that? Is that handed down?
Well, I don't know. I think anyone that can spot a good foal, in terms of looking at a foal and thinking if they're any good, I admire judges of foals. I suppose that's when they go to the sale. But in terms of the actual brood mare and how good she is, it's how good she's been on the racecourse. And I think the size of the mare has to come into it. I mean, there's a lot of very, very good fillies out there who are on the smaller side, but the ideal brood mare is a bigger brood mare, a bigger stamp of an animal, because then you are inclined to think they'll put a bit of size and strength into their foals. So you start with a mare that is got good form on her, and then she also has good conformation, good a good size, good body on her, and then you pray for the rest.
Yeah, it's a fascinating game, Lorna. You've obviously come a long way. I probably first got to know you on, was it the Racing Channel back in the day?
Yeah, long time ago. That was a really long time ago. I mean, 20 years ago now.
Yeah, how have you
Gosh,
found the game change? Because obviously your background with your parents and all that. How have you found it's changed to the modern day? We're in a very precarious time at the moment with COVID and so forth. But has it been a kind of a fascinating journey for you from Scotland to here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my mother trained very successfully in Scotland, and she had a wonderful way of training. It was sort of very carefree, I suppose. We used to, yeah, go all over the place, all over the farmer's land, and it was a lovely way to train. Fun enough, I think that way of training now would be very hard. I think the game has definitely got inevitably more competitive, without a doubt. I think obviously in both Ireland and the UK, there's obviously been the bigger yards get bigger, and it's definitely made it harder for the smaller yards. But I still take the view that you know, if you want to get involved in the game, you don't complain, you get on with it, and you make the best of what you've got. And anybody who has made it big, they've done so through hard work and ability. So it has gone that way, but not for a minute do I actually begrudge anybody who's done very well and got big, because they fully merited it.
Was it like a bit of an idyllic childhood?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we had the ponies, and we were all very involved as a family. We were incredibly lucky because we were always interested in the racing. I remember my granny saying to me once, I think I was about, my brother, who was a professional jockey for a long time, Mark Bradburn, he retired a good few years ago now, but you know, he was probably, I don't know, maybe 15, I was 13. I remember my granny saying to me, you know, Mark's going to be a top jockey and you can be a top eventer. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Want to do the racing. So all I wanted to do for a long time was, you know, riding races, which I did for a long time. But it was all through the whole involvement in the yard. You know, we just, as a family, we were very lucky because all four of us were into it and we loved it. And so therefore we had this incredible common ground, which meant that, you know, we were very close as a family, and we all were so involved with it, with all the runners, you know, before Mark was riding, before I was riding, and then when we were both riding, and then when Mark continued. So, and, you know, we did have a sort of idyllic way of training. It was, you know, my mother never had a lot of horses. Funny enough, I think she went to about 20, and that was almost too much for her because she was so hands-on. And I'd say probably, you know, 12 to 15 horses were her ideal. And the horses were healthy and they were happy, and I mean, they used to go all over the place. So it was a slightly unconventional way of training if you look at it now, but it worked, and she was a brilliant trainer, my mother. Really successful, right? She was, yeah. I mean, from a small team, we were second to Bobby Joe in the Grand National with Blue Charm. Lorcan Wire, he ended up coming in for the ride because my brother had ridden Rough Quest in the Fox Hunters a couple of days before, and he'd sprung his collarbone, so he couldn't ride, which was gutting for him. So we had to get a jockey, and the Blue Charm was, oh, he was crazy in the parade ring. I mean, he was jumping all over the place, sweating up, and Lorcan said after the race, he was like, do you know what, we're going to fall at the first. I just want to be safe, get back in the weighing room for it all to be okay. And anyway, literally once the tapes went up, the horse gave him the most fabulous ride. So Blue Charm was, yeah, so he was second to Bobby Joe, and he won a good few times at Aintree. And we had Off the Brew, third in the Scottish Grand National, and we had General Shandos is the one that really got things going. He was bred by my father and his parents. Yeah, there's a lot of generations, our side too, I suppose. And so that was, so that's kind of where it began. And he won a big race at Ayr back in the, so when I was about 10, I suppose. And so it was always very much a family affair. And I do look at it now, you know, I have two small children. Obviously, you know, Harry's with me at home, and you know, we very much work together with this. He obviously works for Tattersalls Ireland too. But, you know, I think of my children growing up, and, you know, I want them to be involved. I know how much I enjoyed the involvement growing up. I mean, racing is such a thrill. I mean, always has been. And I just think of all the great people I've met along the way, and it's been fabulous. So I'd love my children to get involved. They're
How
only 8
difficult
and
is
6, mind you.
How difficult is it for if someone like, for example, your mother, if she were starting out now with a similar operation up the north in Scotland or in the north of England around the borders or whatever, with prize money as it is, with travel costs as they are, how difficult is it now for a trainer in that neck of the woods to make a go of it?
I don't think the prize money is any worse in the north, in Scotland, the north of England, than it is
generally, obviously, in Britain.
Generally. I think that, I suppose, when you're training horses, and I always vowed I'd never train horses because, you've got to make it pay. And, that's why people have to sell horses, and that's why you have to be very savvy now when you do train. It's very hard to say whether you'd go down that route. Now, I think you would, because the love of racing for a lot of people and the love of training sort of overwhelms everything. But from the point of view of the prize money, while there are some people that will do it for the love, I mean, the prize money in the UK is, well, it's a bit insulting, I think, to have it so low. And I just hope that things can change and more money goes in, because at the end of the day, it's the best racing here and Ireland, and the prize money here is very good. It's a totally different deal. There's definitely owners now from the UK that would rather have horses here because there's better prize money. But no, the UK prize money is very concerning. I mean, it's it has to at least, I don't know, give something back. At the moment, it is a bit insulting, I think.
It's difficult times as well, I think, for the game, in that obviously the sales have reflected the jitters that the pandemic has brought upon things, and you add that into the prize money situation, and the ownership experience is not good at the moment. That's even if you're able to go racing. And if we're going to face into, the Irish situation at the moment, if we're going to face into a winter of this kind of, it's just not that attractive for a lot of owners. And I think it's difficult for trainers to keep the show on the road at the moment. And I guess the flip side of that is you can get a horse at a cheap price, but it is a trying enough time, I think, in Britain.
Very much so. I think that there's not a lot of light for the winter going forward for racing. The owner of Lady Heath, he's coming racing today, and I mean he never misses the races, and he missed her run at Down Royal, and he's just really happy to be going racing. I mean, the racecourse experience, of course, is not everything it should be, but I suppose you have to, it depends where you're coming from, and where we're coming from now is that we had no racing. We've now got racing. Owners are allowed to go, and you're right, it's not attractive for the short term, but you'd like to think people will ride the storm. I think the worry is not knowing when the storm is going to end. And I think people would like to keep seeing progress in terms of more people being allowed to go racing and have that experience. But you just hope, every single industry in the world is affected. So we're not on our own. And I think as best we can to ride the storm. I think for the race courses, for them, it's very worrying, because they don't have the income of people coming in. But yeah, I just hope that we can find a way forward and ride the storm for long enough. I mean, I tend to sort of, it's great with horses. You can get so focused on them and you can put all your energies into them and not think about the bigger picture. And sometimes you have to, of course, you need to think about the bigger picture, but you've also just got to take each day as it comes. As best you can.
Lorna, will you take us back to that bit where you were saying that you definitely had no intention of becoming a trainer, and yet here you are with a horse in Gilroy today. So what happened?
Well, funnily enough, when I was at school, and I think even through university, no, probably just at school, and I did this thing. I think you did it when you went into the, when you started at secondary school and you wrote these things, what you were going to go, when you go to university, and what we're going to be when you grow up, basically. And I put trainer, and then I opened it up 6 years later, and I was like, no, got to make money. And so then I was interested in the, in the racing, the riding. So I rode as an amateur for years, and so I was very lucky though, because it meant I always went to different places. I worked for Francois Dumaine for a bit. I worked for a trainer in South Africa. I worked for. I was with Oisin Murphy for sort of on and off for a lot of summers, and then I was in Newmarket riding out for a lot of trainers. So I saw a lot of places because I was just always interested. But then I thought I'd get into the media side of things, and I had a great career with that, for the racing channel at the races and racing TV, of course. And then we came back to Ireland. So I think that was nearly 9 years ago. And so Harry's mother was training at the time, and she was doing well. She had Bandjack's girl, who she was doing really well with, and of course I was getting involved with the horses in the yard. Then she died, which was very sad. Harry's had a tough time. Between Harry and I, we probably haven't had the best time of it, but with parents. But anyway, I just took over the license, and because someone sort of had to pick it up, and then it's just very addictive. I mean, while my head said I didn't want to train, my heart definitely always wanted to train, really. Horses is, look, when you're into horses, it's kind of what you do.
Okay, I'm really fascinated by it was one of the first things that we talked about, was the generational handing down of information and knowledge, and obviously you've two separate training styles and places, and are you an amalgamation of those two? Are you very much more?
I'd say definitely. I think Harry's father. So he died about 12 years ago now. The head man, Dermot Fagan, he worked for Harry's grandfather as well, and I think inevitably he's very much of the school of how the Brig and John and then Chich obviously trained. So inevitably the way the yard has been, that influences the way I train. So there's a lot of caution on that side. Whereas my mother trained at completely the other end of the spectrum, where it was just get on with it. And then the horses gave them confidence. So I definitely have the caution thrown in now too. But yes, absolutely, the two are very, very different in a lot of ways. Of course, similar in some ways, given that both places, where we trained at home, it was very much, lovely land, all the grass, different places to go. And we have the same at Rainston. You have the different places to go, and that's where we're very lucky, from the point of view of having, they can go this way one day and that way the next, just if they need a bit of a sweeten up. So I think sometimes you train in a way that, you marry the two together without really thinking about it. It just sort of happens because maybe it happens on instinct, and then you try and pull in all the sensible bits to throw in with it. In the
BBC three-part drama of it, you'd have to win over the head lad with your newfangled way of doing things from Scotland.
No, I just did as I was told. No, that's not true at all. From what he knows and what came through from John and Chich, there's so much sense there, and also it's kind of knowing the base where you are and making the best use of it. And so it's a team effort at the end of the day. The whole place is a team effort, and I know everybody says it, and but it's true. I mean, you have to listen to everybody, and you listen to everybody, the people that are riding the horses, seeing the horses every day. And, you have to rely on them for every bit of feedback, because as we all know, when you're training, every little detail matters. And, you've got to stay on top of absolutely everything. So that's why inevitably, of course, it's a team thing. That is like anything, nothing works unless the team is good.
There's so much history, obviously behind where you're living now as well. And I recall an Irish Times article where there was talk that you might have some TV producers over to the house to do some filming there, because it's obviously a gorgeous, old house that needs maintenance and all that. But have you stayed there in the house, and what's its future?
Well, yeah, I mean, we very much looked into, the house is definitely big enough for 4 people, so, and the rest. So we've kind of looked into different things, doing events, having film crews in. I think the event side of things, I think you need to really be full on with that. And, that's not an option for us. The film side of things, we had a bit of interest, and, if that's something that came to fruition, it'd be great. I mean, you've got to look at all sorts of ways for how to utilize the house, I suppose, to make money. And we thought a lot about it, but obviously in the last few months, you you leave it alone right now because there's not going to be anybody coming in and making big investments in anywhere or coming in as an investor in any shape or form. So I think going forward, we would like to, get the house to pay for itself as such, for sure. How that happens, I don't know. But right now, there's no point in pushing anything because we are not in the right economy to be doing that.
How many horses do you have in training at the moment?
So I have about, there's probably 18 riding out. That includes 3-year-olds. So, it's about 18 riding out. And then, they'll sort of keep on coming through. I have a good few 4-year-olds, most of which will probably wait till the spring. I've got a good few more to come out this year. So yeah, I mean, they're all...
is that the number you like? Are you, in further to the conversation earlier, is that about right?
I think it's a lovely number right now. I would definitely love a few more. Of course I would, because if nothing else, safety in numbers or something like that. So, of course, I would like some more. I don't want to go to 100 horses or anything, but, you'd like to be up to 25, 30 horses. And I think that's probably a sensible number to be looking at. I'm very happy with what I've got now, and I'm very lucky, touch wood, insofar as I hope I have some nice horses, and I am incredibly lucky. But yes, of course, I would like a few more, yeah.
And is the stuff that gets you most excited, like today going to Gorin, it's obviously, it's a bumper, so if there's a brilliant performance, then anything is possible, because, this could well be a brilliant start or something. What for you, I don't want to ask what's the goal, but like what would be an amazing thing that would be a career highlight? What are the type of things that you kind of have on your list?
Oh, well, I mean, at the end of the day, Cheltenham's a big deal, isn't it? I think it'd be lovely to have serious runners at Cheltenham. I rode a winner at Cheltenham.
I was going to say, your family have had some success at Cheltenham, right?
Yeah, I rode a winner for Henry Cecil in the it was the charity race. It was called the St Patrick's Day Derby, but it was for...
It's a race at Cheltenham. You don't need to say, there's no qualification, it's a charity race. It's our race at Cheltenham.
And it was, so the Maria Niarchos owned the horse Plato, and it was brilliant. I mean, he basically, I was living in Newmarket at the time, and I thought I'd apply for this race. I hadn't ridden for years in races, and I thought, God, I'll just wouldn't mind a go. So I applied, and then Henry decided he wanted to run at the Cheltenham Festival. So I was in Newmarket, and they said, oh yeah, no, would you be interested? And I was like, oh yes, I would. And then he called me up, and I kind of knew him probably because I'd only interviewed him at the races, but he didn't know me, and so anyway, he calls me up and he said, you can come and try this horse. You can ride him out tomorrow. He said, but you're not going to ride him in the race if you're no good, because I can't have the horse going down the hill unbalanced. So if you're not good enough, you don't ride. So
no pressure.
I went and rode out. Yeah, I went and rode out the next day, and anyway, he let me stay, and I had a brilliant time riding out there because I was there for a season. It was Frankel's 3-year-old season.
Oh.
And then and it was fun, and there was Midday, and there was Vita Nova, and then of course Plato, who won the St Patrick's Day Derby. But actually at the time, because it was March and it was before the flat season had obviously really got going, so I mean Henry and Jane, they were really into the whole thing, getting Plato absolutely dead on for the race. So that was quite fun, yeah, really fun. So yes, Cheltenham as a trainer would be a highlight.
Just in relation to your career so far as well, you've done like extremely well really in terms of strike rate, particularly in bumpers, and you had Colonel Mustard winning during the week, and looking back to Paula Tess last year, who was obviously actually one of the more impressive mares in bumpers last season. So what's the plan with her, and how many more bumper horses will you have for the season, I guess?
So Paula Tess, well, she kind of marries in the breeding side of things, because her Alex Frost and my husband bought Dalamine a few years ago, the brood mare, and she was the first. So since, obviously she's a half sister to Don Poli, but and we bought the mare before Don Poli started to do his thing. And anyway, that she was the first foal at Rainston, Paula Tess. So for my husband and Harry, this is huge in terms of breeding her. And we now have Pete Davis in with the ownership now, which is great. And she is, she's grateful. she is a really, really big girl. She's got bigger as well over the summer. She's filled out and she's strong. And, she won her hurdle before we went into lockdown. So she obviously won her bumper and then won her hurdle. And obviously, disappointingly, we didn't get to the festivals, didn't get to Punchestown. But never mind, you move on and you get on with it. She had a nice summer break. I'm hoping I'll have her out at the end of the month at Down Royal. There's a mare's grade 3 there. And then, we'll see where we go from there. But ideally, sort of step up and trip and take it from there. So, yeah, of course she's exciting. I hope she stays exciting, But she's a real queen at home. She knows she's good. She's a proper queen, but she's lovely.
And Lady Heath today, what kind of a chance does Lady Heath have? That looks like a fairly hot race.
It's a really hot race. It's one of those things where if all the cards fell for us, she could run a really big race. You'd need absolutely everything to go right for her. I mean, obviously there's the form with Sheerless. She's £7 better off with Sheerless today. Sheerless has obviously moved to Gordon subsequent from that Down Royal run a few weeks ago. And, Purple Mountain, who beat Colonel Mustard at Killarney, she's very, very good. So, it's a very good race. But if all the cards fell, you'd like to think you'd certainly get a place. Of course, if we get the win, we'll only be delighted. But there are a lot of good horses in it. So I would actually call it wide open, to be honest with you.
I have one last question. So the horses that we're talking about are all National Hunt horses, and it seems like National Hunt on both sides is definitely been handed down. Has there ever been any consideration or thought about being a dual-purpose trainer? Is it something that's in your future?
Of course. I mean, I think you consider everything. I mean, obviously the flat is quicker turnaround, more commercial, more money, et cetera, et cetera. I think right now, I have run a flat horse, Keep Dreaming. And yeah, she's a whole other story, but she's amazing. And she now, I use her at home, and she's a great horse to work horses with. She's choisir and she's quick, and she's a brilliant workhorse for me now. Whether or not I'll run her this year, I don't know. But yeah, the flat right now, no, not now, but absolutely, of course you consider it for the future. But, we'll trot on with our jumpers just now.
Well, look, it is a really interesting story. Continued success, and thanks a million for joining us this Friday afternoon. Best of luck tonight.
Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. Good to talk.
That was really fascinating there from Lorna. Right, Johnny, we had good news last week. It says here, Johnny had 2 picks for the Tote Irish Injured Jockeys Fund at the Curragh last weekend. High Definition delivered both a win and a place, while Dance Jupiter placed, meaning 3 of the 4 bets landed to up the winnings to €2,230. We are officially on a roll, baby.
I wouldn't go that far, but if you backed High Definition now, you wouldn't have been holding out much hope. So the horse that finished second to him was bet in running at 100 to 1 on. Somebody might have had £5,000 to win 50 quid on it and lost, as High Definition rattled home and cemented his place, or rather announced his place, as Derby favourite next year. He's very exciting. Let's keep it up, hopefully, this weekend anyway.
We have another €100 Tote bet. A reminder that Tote.ie customers can get the Tote guarantee, Tote versus SP on all Irish and UK racing. Check out Tote.ie for more. Where are we going?
Yeah, I suppose it should be just mentioned to check out if you're betting on the Tote, check out the betting on Sunday into the French pool, which it's always an interesting day for racing, obviously, in terms of betting. If you're betting into the Tote, the pool, they can be kind of lopsided markets over there, maybe biased towards the French horses on Arc Day, biased towards the Japanese horse, if there are Japanese horses, which I don't believe there are this year. So just keep an eye. You might get a little bit of value on the plethora of strong Irish chances really over there. But my nap is 3:35 at Tipperary starting Monday. Might resonate with some people lucky enough to be beginning a new job on Monday. But in any event, this horse, I backed it at Listowel. It was a little bit slowly out of the gates. Travelled great, finished third, was miles out of its ground. Now, it's not drawn well in tip, but I don't know if that'll matter that much because it'll probably come through horses anyway. And I think you could get like 8-10 to 1. So I'm going to go each way on that 3:35 tip. I think Mark Enright takes the ride. Okay, I don't see any prices for that just yet, but that is the crack. So it is starting Monday, 3:35 in Tipperary tomorrow. Is that right? Yeah, I've kind of, this is almost like a get out excuse, but if it doesn't win, keep an eye on this horse because it's the draw could definitely be better, but plenty of racing between now and then the year. He's a horse I'm going to keep following. I think he's well handicapped. He's a small trainer as well, so it's quite a small yard, so can be like quite a backable price. And Mark Enright, fair play to him, we had him on the show maybe last year. Talked about his life and career and all that, but he probably didn't talk much about becoming a very adept flat jockey. He's had a great year. He's almost a little bit too light to really make it at the top. Maybe as a jumps jockey, he's a real lightweight jumps jockey. He's flying it on the flat, very, very strong, and a lot of horses appreciate his handling.
All right, good stuff. Johnny, I know you're on tomorrow afternoon talking about football, so we'll let you keep all your hot takes on Dundalk until then, unless you want to unburden one of them now.
No, just how exciting it is to see Dundalk draw on against Arsenal. So I heard tell maybe that there might be a possibility of some people being allowed into the ground. So I have to maybe clarify that, because obviously if they could play Arsenal in the Aviva Stadium, it'd be nice to get like even 8,000-10,000 people in to see it or something. But there might be a bit of movement on that, hopefully. But it's amazing times for Dundalk. I mean, Shane Keegan has been on off the ball quite a lot. His story is utterly remarkable, but they're there. They were in the pot, and this is 3 Irish teams now in 10 years that have made it to the Europa League group stages. Considering how dysfunctional the FAI has been and how poor prize money has been, it's a great achievement. It really is. We should be proud of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Johnny, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. That's another Friday Night Racing in the books. If you don't know by now, we broadcast live every Friday afternoon on all of our social channels here on OTB. That's Facebook, that's Periscope, Twitter, and also, of course, on YouTube. The best place to get us these days is the OTB Sports app, which you can download for nothing, and in the app stores. And then also we're live every Friday evening from 8 o'clock on Off the Ball on News Talk. And Friday Night Racing is brought to you in association with Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.